customer service. Where does it end and where does it begin? You're standing up for yourself. That's an interesting point, isn't it? What I find is that if people are really rude, then they have no right to speak to people the way they do. You have a job, if you're looking after your client, if that's a customer or a client, depending on what it is, you have a job to make sure that you understand that they always come first. But to the point changes when they become rude, okay, and insulting and complain with bad language. There's no need for anyone to do that. So you have to stand up for yourself, I think, if that type of thing happens. Also, if the product or service that you're offering, they're complaining about, there is nothing wrong with it and it does everything that you think it does and it does it well, then to be honest with you, what are we dealing with here? We're dealing with the product that says what it does what it says on the tin. That's important. And because it does what it says on the tin, if anyone's going to have an issue with that, then maybe they didn't understand what they were buying in the first place. But if you believe in what you've got and you believe in your product and it does a good job, then stand up for it, for goodness sake. Don't just allow people to push you around. That would be my answer.
Yeah, I agree. Entrepreneurs, how many hours a night do they need to sleep?
They don't. They just stay up all night.
Exactly. Some do. Okay, so most entrepreneurs sleep 4 hours, maybe up to 6 hours a night. That's what I find in general and what I read up on.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any right or wrong answer. I think you should get the sleep you need to be as productive as possible in the day, because some people actually need slightly more sleep than others. I think it's just really, really important that when you are awake, you give it everything you got and you hustle as much as possible.
All right, so if you're leaving to go and work for a competitor and you have a non-compete clause in your contract, my advice would be to respect your non-compete clause. You didn't sign a contract with those terms and conditions in just to sign a contract. You signed it because you are bound by those terms and your employer is bound by those terms as well. There's things in the contract that are advantageous for you as much as there are for the employer. So my belief is you don't breach contracts, you stay within the letter of your contract, and then you avoid any potential legal implications or lawsuits you might face. 2 weeks notice though, in an office with lots of nosy and hassling type colleagues that want to know what you're doing and how you're doing it, my advice would be tell them to mind their own business. And just focus on what you've got to focus on. These people are insignificant in your life, so ignore them. Crack on doing what you're doing. Okay, keep your head down. If you've got 2 weeks notice, then be respectful and give that 2 weeks notice fully, professionally, and then leave with your head held high for a very important reason. And that is you never want to burn bridges. Because if you do, it might come back to haunt you.
Selling to doctors, should you call them by their first names? I prefer to. Okay, but doctors out of all professions, for some reason, love their title more than professors or whatever it may be. So for me, I would always ask, is it okay to call you Alan, or do you prefer to be called Dr. Alan? Okay, hopefully they say Alan, but if they say Dr. Alan, you need to respect it.
Hold on a minute though. Would they say Dr. Alan or Dr. Alan Jones, let's say, and it'd be Dr. Jones?
Maybe, whatever they say.
Because typically they would have Dr. Jones, they have these signs on the doors as they go into their offices, don't they?
Yeah.
Or their clinics or their surgeries, Dr. Jones or whatever it is. I don't know.
So again, all you'd say is, okay.
How would you like me to refer to you?
Yeah,
Do you like
exactly.
to be called Dr. Alan, Dr. Jones? How would you like me to speak to you? I think that's a really easy one.
It is easy. I'd like to say, can I call you Alan? Or do you like to be called Dr. Jones or Dr. Alan Jones? But I think if you do that, then more would come round, okay, to first name, which is always more personable.
Yeah, I agree. So getting a sales job with no experience and no education is bizarrely easier than you think. What education is relevant in sales? There's lots of education that's relevant in lots of industries, but not necessarily in sales. With no experience, well, lots of companies like to train their own people up through the ranks and take them on in their early parts of their career and give them the knowledge and the skills they need. What is an employer that's employing salespeople looking for? That's probably more important to consider. Are they looking for someone with an MBA? Are they looking for someone with a degree in biology? Or maybe they're looking for somebody with the right attitude. Maybe they're looking for someone that's demonstrated a great work ethic, demonstrated success in their part-time jobs when they were younger. Maybe they were a captain of a football team. There's all these different aspects that companies look for when they employ salespeople that aren't directly linked to their education or their experience. It's probably one of the few industries that you can get into easier than you would do others based around what kind of character you have and what kind of determination and grit you can demonstrate.
Yeah, I agree. Character means a lot when it comes to selling. And sometimes overqualified salespeople generally don't do as well, okay, because they overcomplicate and they don't keep it simple and simple sells. So I agree with you, and everyone needs to start somewhere.
So what are you saying? Simple people get into selling?
No, simple selling sells easier because people can digest it, okay, and relate to that. Well, often people get over technical, and I find that with people that are super clever and overqualified, you need it every now and then.
Yeah.
But for 98%, 99% of the sales, they don't need that. And everyone has to start somewhere. Remember, the person that's interviewing you had to start somewhere as well. So there's many characteristics I think that employers look for. So don't beat yourself up about it. If you think it's a problem, it will be. Ideally, I'd just say go for it.
Agreed.
Okay, so want to go into a new sales job, but you're afraid of failure? Who wouldn't be? I think most people would be. Any humans, okay, when you're looking at change, you're always frightened. Okay, but it shouldn't hold you back. Just remember that every person that's gone into sales has probably had exactly the same feeling. Okay, you need to believe in yourself and you need to get those thoughts out of your head. And what's the worst thing that can happen? You go into sales, you fail, then if you're not that good at it, get into another profession. For me, always give something a go. Because remember, every single person that's maybe joined that company or got into sales has felt exactly the same way. It's human nature, it's the feelings we have, it's outside our comfort zone, we're off autopilot, we're out all of a sudden into something that's all new, weird, okay, and we may doubt ourselves, but you shouldn't, because most people can sell. It's all down to training, okay, your personality and how adaptable you are to that career.
That fear of failure, I think, has got a lot to do with perspective as well. You know, if you compare that fear of failure with the fear of your parachute not opening, if you skydive, that fear is a much bigger fear because I'd be terrified of my parachute not opening. And if that comparison can be made, then someone saying no to me or me not succeeding, well, that's not going to have life-changing impact on me where the skydive would. So I think it's always important to give perspective to something. And you're absolutely right. If it doesn't work out, guess what? You've had jobs or careers and opportunities in the past that didn't work out. You dusted yourself down, you brushed yourself off, and you got up to live to fight another day. Yeah, I agree with that. If a salesperson engages in small talk, then they're missing the point. General conversation about nothing generally leads to general conversation about nothing, in my opinion. Small talk isn't what you need to focus on. Building great quality rapport with the person that you're talking to is where the value is. And that's not small talk. That's you finding the opportunity to learn about that person from their professional role, from their family situation, what they do in their spare time, etc., and get an area of common ground with that person. Build some rapport so that you can find things that you can identify in them that they can identify in you. And if you do that, and you do that efficiently, then you've not done small talk, you've built rapport, and by building rapport, you build a little bit of trust and you build a little bit of credibility. And the way to understand that in the most detail is to remember, the more interested you are in somebody, the more interesting you will appear to be.
Spot on. So what do you do when a prospect, okay, wants to go over everything over the phone, including the price, okay, and your job is to go face to face with them. Okay, so first of all, you've got a product to sell them. Okay, let's say it's a car. Okay, I would refuse to sell a car over the phone because the likelihood, or give them the price and try and sell them the car over the phone, because the likelihood they might turn up and it might have dents in, it might have scratches in, it might not be quite the condition they thought it was in. So a professional job is to always show somebody the product, make sure it suits them, and only then will they see the value in that product and whether the price, okay, matched what they perceived as the value. So it's only professional. So that would be my approach to that. What's your approach?
I think first of all I'd speak to the client and I'd say to them, look, what's the benefit of you doing this over the telephone? And then I'd ask them, okay, what value they perceive that I can offer them. And then I would demonstrate to them how much more value I could add to them if they sit down face to face with me, depending on the product and service. If it was a car, for example, I would say to them, there's no way in the world you're going to buy a car from me without either you coming to the showroom or me bringing it to you so that you can inspect it and take a look at it. So either way, I don't mind, but there's no way in the world that I'm going to sit and do a deal with you over the telephone. But also remember, when people are asking that type of stuff over the phone, you don't know how serious they are. You want to get face to face with them because you want to really qualify them. There's lots of people that I think in the car industry, they're called tire kickers, okay, that are out there just shopping, okay, rather than buying. and you need to establish that. So if your model is to do it face to face, then insist that you add value, you bring value, and they won't get the best out of you and their experience unless they meet with you. That would be my opinion.
They need to experience it. A lot of the time you need to see a product. You need to see a car, you need to drive a car.
But you don't need to see an insurance policy.
No, but you need to actually sit with them and make sure the policy is correct and run through that.
So the product or the service satisfies the needs.
100%. I've purchased a property before without seeing it. One time I purchased it, and another one, by the time I went to see it, I had to back out because the photos didn't look, in real life, it was nothing like the photos. So again, the agent said that they didn't generally let people purchase properties over the phone. They insisted. I said I lived abroad. They went ahead and did it, and I'm sure they regretted it because I wasted probably 2 months of their time and sale.
Good point. So when you're dealing with prospects that already have a tied in or a contracted commitment to a service provider or to a product provider, then it's important to understand when that contract comes to maturity. But in the meantime, it's important to establish a really strong relationship with that person by learning about the reason they purchased that contract in the first place, what they've enjoyed about that experience, and the kind of things that they would like to see improved or they're not very happy about. Getting a good understanding of where that person is and that business is based around that contract will give you a good understanding of how you approach that person when that contract comes up for renewal and you have the chance to fight for it. Again, spending time with your prospective client, really investigating as much as you can to find as much valuable information as you can will only bode well as you look forward to the future. But remember, if that cycle of that contract, it matures in 6 months or 12 months' time, if you lose contact after starting out making effort, you know what's going to happen? It will fade away into nothing. So you need to have a structured approach. Maybe that's a phone call, a lunch every month, every other month, so that person thinks of you in the forefront of their mind when they come to making their new decision. Well, there's a rule of thumb here, and that rule of thumb is never ever let somebody else try and sell your product or service for you. So if you were to sell, a secretary that then had to sell on your product or service to the managing director, then you're relying on someone who's not trained as a professional salesperson to try and then relay that information. Something will always get lost in the wash, and I bet every salesperson that watches this video has had a scenario where they've experienced exactly that. So you've got to find a way of getting past the secretary. And the way that you do that is by talking about the value that you can bring, but by asking leading questions. I don't want you to sell my product for me. I believe as the professional, I need to be the person that does that for you. I understand that Mr. Johnson is a busy guy. I really do appreciate that, but I'm happy to come to your office at 7:30 in the morning when he gets in to steal 15 minutes of his time. I'm very happy to meet him at 5:30 or 6 o'clock as he's leaving the office to take 15 minutes of his time because I really feel this will bring value. If you then get further rejection from that secretary saying, no, it has to come through me, then I will quite simply say, would it be possible that I can meet you both together? Okay, you get a chance to see me, he gets a chance to see me, or she gets a chance to see me, and we can talk about this together. But I really don't want to go down the road of having to rely on you to do it for me. Imagine if I was sat in your shoes and you were relying on me to do your job for you. I'd probably get it all wrong, I'd probably fall over, and I wouldn't know where to start. And I just want the professional courtesy of being able to do that. If you still get that resistance after that, then you have to say to yourself, right, maybe I shouldn't be approaching the secretary. Maybe I should find a way to approach the prospects directly. And maybe that's a different way of approaching the prospects. Maybe you do it through sending them a gift, sending them some form of written documentation, some form of way of engaging. Maybe you find out where they live, okay, and you engage with them on their way home from work. Maybe you know where they go to drink or they go to eat. Maybe you know where they go to the gym, and you can find that out. Facebook shares so much information nowadays that we could learn more. If I wanted to get in touch with someone badly enough and I had a gatekeeper in front of me, I'd circumnavigate the gatekeeper until I could get in front of that guy. And if he then sent me back to the gatekeeper, then fair enough. But I've got to try and find my way there.
I think it's also important to work out, is there just one decision maker or two? Because many times I've spoke to one decision maker, and when it's left to that decision maker just to run it past the other decision maker, they don't sell it half as well as what I've sold it to them.
Exactly.
And it kills it. Yeah. So I think that's really important too.
Yeah, bang on the money.